It's weird how something can go from the center of your life to something you just walk past without noticing. I used to get frustrated at anything that got in the way of me playing this, but now I'll go weeks forgetting I even own a guitar. It just hangs on the wall like decoration, slowly becoming invisible. I'll pick it up sometimes, if only to remind myself that I can still do it, but I wish it felt the way it used to. I got my first guitar when I was 12, and I tried to learn it the right way with songbooks, but that kind of felt like homework, and it just didn't make sense to me. So I quit almost immediately. A few years later, my cousin showed me the Iron Man riff, which I could do because it only took one finger on one string. And then later, a White Stripes song came on, and I thought I could probably do that too. And so I sat down and tried to figure it out, and sure enough, I could. And then I realized I could play music by ear. And then it made me think like every song is already in the guitar, and I just have to find it. So I got pretty obsessed. And I would sit in my room for hours just sifting through notes and discovering songs. And when I ran out of music to learn, I realized I could just make my own. And there were no other musicians around me at the time. So there was no one to compare myself to. And there was no one to tell me how to do it right. Which meant everything that I made was just mine. And eventually I made an album. It wasn't like I had something important to say, but I had created enough songs that it felt like it was the next step. And the only real feedback I remember getting was from a family member, and they said, "It's kind of depressing." And I remember thinking, oh no, did I accidentally become a bummer? I had no idea because writing it didn't feel depressing to me. It felt like taking something out of me and putting it somewhere else. But that was the first time I noticed that other people don't hear the process, they just hear the result. So I thought maybe I should just like repackage it, make it more digestible. So I experimented with lyrics that were a little more general, and I kept the chords more familiar, and I made vocal melodies that sounded more upbeat. And around that time, I started performing at odd places for money, mostly cover songs. And that was a different experience entirely. It was basically watching people in real time deciding what matters. I'd play a song and there'd be like no real reaction. And then I'd play another and suddenly people would start paying attention. Not often to the whole song, but usually certain moments. Like maybe if there was an abrupt pause between parts, or if the melody climbed in a certain way. Someone would look up or tap their foot or just lean back in their chair. So I started taking these little mental notes. I started borrowing these moments from my own songs. And then I'd pepper them into a set just to test it. And it worked. And at first it felt pretty good. But then about a week after writing a song, I would just be bored of it. I mean, sure, it was fun to play for others. But once I was alone with it, I realized I couldn't really relate to the sound. And the songs felt a lot less like self expression and more like a collage of borrowed bits. And later I moved somewhere that actually had a rich history of music culture. And the people there actually requested original music. And they just kind of shrugged at cover songs. They didn't just listen, they judged. And they had well articulated opinions about what made a song good, and what made it lazy, and what made it worthy. And the other musicians I met weren't just passionate, they were also educated. They had degrees in things like jazz composition, and they could explain why a chord worked, or why a song made sense, or why something was wrong. And it all made me wonder, have I been doing this wrong? There was this moment I was in a cold shed, trading songs with a friend. And I played one, and it was fine. Then he played one, and it wasn't better exactly, but it was less edited. And that difference was obvious to everyone in the room. And I remember feeling almost embarrassed, like maybe I'd been holding something important back. I didn't want to get better at making likable songs anymore. I wanted to get better at making my songs. And so they did get better. They got more deliberate and more complex. And suddenly my peers respected them. But they also started taking forever. What used to take me 30 minutes now took me weeks or months. I'd eventually rework the same songs over the course of a year. Because once you know what you're doing, you can improve it. And there was always room for improvement. It felt like I wasn't even writing songs anymore. Like I was stuck trying to prove that I could. I don't really write music anymore. The second I pick up a guitar, I don't really hear anything new. I just kind of hear variations of all the things I've already done, and a running commentary on whether it's good enough or if it's depressing. At first, I was just curious, and then I started working through stuff, and then I just kind of kept going because it felt like that's what you were supposed to do. But somewhere in there, I think I got what I needed from it, which is strangely inconvenient because now nothing pushes me toward it anymore. It's just something I used to do.